What if I told you that the only Canadian province with French as its sole official language, a place celebrated for its literature, its music, its comedy, and its fiercely distinct culture, also quietly gave the world some of the most iconic food you've ever eaten? Poutine, smoked meat, wood-fired bagels, maple taffy, a pudding invented by Depression-era factory workers. These aren't just Canadian foods, they're distinctly Québécois. And Quebec will make sure you never forget the difference. But here's what nobody talks about. Some of these dishes have been claimed, copied, diluted, and stripped of the culture that created them. And the people of Quebec, they're not happy about it. Quebec is the largest province in Canada by area and one of the oldest European settlements in North America. Its culture is fiercely protected. They have their own language laws, their own identity, and a food culture that predates the United States by over a century. What we're going to look at today are 10 dishes that were either invented here, perfected here, or so deeply embedded in Quebec culture that no outside version has ever come close. Fries, cheese curds, gravy, 3 ingredients. And honestly, one of the most contested food origin stories in Canadian history. Poutine emerged in rural Quebec in the late 1950s. The exact birthplace? Still totally disputed. At least 3 towns claim it: Warwick, Drummondville, and Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu. This argument has been going on for like 60 years. There have even been academic papers written about it. But here's what everyone agrees on. The cheese has to squeak. Fresh, unaged cheese curds, so fresh they squeak when you bite them. Absorb the hot gravy just enough to soften without melting completely. That texture is the whole point. Today, poutine is served at McDonald's in Canada. It's on menus from Tokyo to London. And trust me, Québécois will look you dead in the eye and tell you that none of those versions are real poutine. Because once you swap the fresh curds for shredded mozzarella, you've missed the entire point. The word poutine in Quebec slang originally meant mess, which is either the perfect name or a warning. Probably both. It's Christmas Eve in Quebec. Midnight Mass just ended, and in almost every family home, there is a tourtière waiting. This spiced meat pie dates all the way back to 17th century Quebec settlers. Over 400 years of tradition on a single plate. And the recipe, every family has their own. Every family believes theirs is the authentic one. In Montreal, tourtière is a shallow, single-crust pie made with ground pork, seasoned with cloves and cinnamon. In Lac-Saint-Jean, in the Saguenay region, it's a massive deep dish construction layered with wild game: venison, rabbit, partridge. They honestly don't even look like the same food. Ask a Québécois which version is real. Then, step back. The name comes from the tourte, a passenger pigeon once used as filling, now extinct. The pie outlived its original ingredient. Before Quebec had much of anything, it had maple trees. And the Catholic Church community traditions that shaped rural Quebec life turned that maple abundance into, honestly, one of the purest survival foods that ever became a cultural treasure. Sugar pie is brown sugar, cream, flour, and butter in a pastry shell. That's it. There's almost nothing in it, and it tastes like the most indulgent thing you've ever eaten. This was church fair food, parish hall food, made by generations of women who stretched what little they had into something that could feed a whole community. The indigenous influence on Quebec's relationship with maple sweeteners runs deep underneath this dish. You just don't hear it talked about enough. In modern Quebec patisseries, tarte au sucre is experiencing a gourmet revival. Some versions sell for $15 a slice. The women who invented it charged nothing. So in the late 1800s, Eastern European Jewish immigrants arrived in Montreal and brought their brisket-curing traditions with them. What they built here became, honestly, one of the great deli traditions in the world, and yeah, one of the great food debates in North America. Montreal smoked meat versus New York pastrami. These two things look similar. They are not the same thing. Montreal smoked meat is dry cured for up to 10 days with a spice blend that's heavy on black pepper and coriander. It's then cold smoked, steamed, and hand-sliced thick. The fat content is higher than pastrami. The texture is different. The flavor is different. The ritual of eating it, at Schwartz's Deli on Boulevard Saint-Laurent, standing in a line that wraps around the block, is completely different. New Yorkers will tell you pastrami is better. Montrealers have heard this argument before. They are not interested. Schwartz's has been open since 1928. It has never changed its recipe. It has never needed to. The Montreal bagel was also brought to Quebec by Jewish immigrants, and it immediately became something entirely its own. Smaller, denser, sweeter, wood-fired, with a bigger hole. Hold a Montreal bagel in one hand and a New York bagel in the other. You will immediately understand. The Montreal bagel is made with honey and egg in the dough, then boiled in honey-sweetened water before going into a wood-burning oven. The result is a chewier, crispier, more complex bagel that Montrealers will tell you, without hesitation, is objectively superior to anything produced in New York. This argument has been running for over 100 years. It has not gotten less heated. If anything, it's getting worse. The two oldest Montreal bagel bakeries, Fairmount Bagel and Saint-Viateur Bagel, are 4 blocks apart and have been competing since the 1950s. Both claim to be the original. Both are open 24 hours a day. Every morning, millions of people in Quebec eat this for breakfast. Almost no one outside Quebec has ever heard of it. Cretins is a spiced pork fat spread. Ground pork slow cooked with onions, cloves, and allspice until everything softens into a dense, spreadable terrine. You put it on toast, it is deeply savory, it is deeply satisfying. It has been Quebec's morning staple for generations. It's similar to French roulettes, but coarser in texture and spiced differently. More cinnamon, more clove, distinctly Québécois. And the fact that it hasn't spread beyond the province is one of the more inexplicable gaps in North American food culture. Cretins shows up in almost every Quebec Sugar Shack breakfast. If you've never had a Sugar Shack breakfast, that is a separate problem we need to address. So, this is the least known dish on this list and, honestly, possibly the most ancient. Cipate, sometimes spelled cipile, sometimes called six pattes, is a multi-layered game meat pie from the Lac Saint-Jean region. We're talking venison, rabbit, and partridge, all layered between sheets of pastry dough and slow cooked in a deep cast iron pot until everything just melds together into something primal and extraordinary. This dish actually predates modern Quebec. It comes from indigenous cooking traditions and early settler survival techniques, and, it's been adapted over centuries into a dish that regional families still make today for major holidays. Some families even begin preparation 2 days in advance. It's one of the most ancient dishes still regularly eaten in North America. And well, almost no one south of the St. Lawrence River has ever tasted it. The name may actually derive from a corruption of sea pie, a layered ship's provisions dish brought over by British sailors. But Quebec absorbed it, and honestly, made it completely unrecognizable from the original. This one predates European settlement entirely. Indigenous peoples in what is now Quebec were harvesting maple sap and reducing it long before French explorers arrived. The tradition of pouring hot syrup onto snow to cool and concentrate into a chewy, stretchy candy is, honestly, one of the oldest food practices in North America. Today, tire sur la neige is the centerpiece of the Sugar Shack, the cabane à sucre experience that Québécois return to every spring. The syrup is boiled to exactly the right temperature, poured in long ribbons onto fresh-packed snow, and rolled onto a wooden stick before it sets. The food and the experience are inseparable. You just cannot recreate tire sur la neige in a kitchen. It requires the snow, it requires the cold air, it requires the shack. That's the point. Some food historians argue that tire sur la neige is not a recipe at all. It's a ritual, and honestly, the argument holds up. It's 1929. The Great Depression has arrived. Female factory workers in Montreal need to stretch whatever ingredients they have into something that feeds people. and they invent one of the most ingenious desserts in North American history. Pouding chômeur, which translates directly as unemployed person's pudding, is simple cake batter poured over hot caramel or maple sauce and baked. As it cooks, the batter rises and the sauce sinks, creating a self-saucing pudding where every bite has cake above and caramel below. The physics of it are, well, pretty remarkable. The invention is remarkable. The fact that it came out of necessity and deprivation and became a beloved dessert in restaurants across Quebec is one of the better food stories of the 20th century. The women who invented it never became famous. The dish did. Modern Quebec chefs have added sea salt, whiskey, and espresso to the original recipe. But the original version, made with whatever was in the cupboard during a depression, remains the most moving. In 1951, a restaurant opened in Montreal that would define how an entire province thinks about chicken. Saint-Hubert created Quebec's rotisserie chicken culture, the slow-roasted, perfectly seasoned bird that became Sunday dinner for generations of Quebec families. But the real story is the sauce. The Saint-Hubert BBQ sauce is one of the most beloved condiments in Quebec history. Slightly sweet, slightly tangy, deeply savory. It's been bottled and sold in grocery stores for decades. Quebec families keep it in the fridge the way other families keep ketchup. Outside Quebec, almost no one has heard of Saint-Hubert. It's one of Canada's oldest and largest restaurant chains. It has barely crossed the provincial border. And Quebec, frankly, seems fine with that. Saint-Hubert now operates over 100 locations, almost entirely within the province. A national expansion has been discussed for 30 years. It keeps not happening. Some things belong to a place. The rest of the world has discovered poutine. They've opened smoked meat restaurants and wood-fired bagel shops from London to Los Angeles. And somewhere in Montreal, someone is eating the real version and shaking their head. I don't blame them. Now you know why? Stay curious.